Um, gonna take a moment and just kind of chill here and see what happens. So I'm gonna be honest. I haven't followed the Breonna Taylor case till recently, and the reason why is because really I'm the type of person that doesn't really form an opinion if I don't know what's up. You know what I'm saying? If I'm not there, if I'm not involved, if I don't have a stake in the game, I really, there's just something about me that does not form an opinion per se. I know the injustice, I feel the injustice, and there's that. But like having something to say about a situation that I'm not really familiar with, it doesn't come to me that way. You know, it just does not. Um, I can say what's wrong. I can comment on what I see, and when I see injustice, I can comment and call out that injustice that I do see. But in general, in the Breonna Taylor case, I haven't been keeping up with it um, just because. But I did take the initiative to go out and go find the grand jury recordings and download them, play them for you all on my channel, and then at the same time listen to what's been taking place, and now I kind of have a conclusion. You know, now I see what happened from different people's mouths. You know, and I can tell it's bad. You know what I'm saying? I can see it's bad. Um, so, in listening to the Breonna Taylor case, this is what I can piece together so far. In the door situation, the police could have announced themselves, but nobody said that they heard them say anything. Somebody who could really, bring out information on that was the gentleman upstairs. There was a man upstairs that everybody says Hankinson was talking to, that was concerned about what they were doing downstairs, knocking on Breonna Taylor's door, right? So that person, has an understanding of what happened. And I believe I've heard before in reference to this case that some person had said they didn't hear it, and then all of a sudden the witness recants it. And I believe it was that person. I'm not sure. Like I said, I haven't followed the case, as much as I should have. But that's what I believe, right? So, however, so if we look at that, the Brett Hankinson's testimony. So you can find Brett Hankinson's testimony on the second day, the first audio recording, right? That's Brett. Basically, the majority of that is Brett Hankinson telling what he did, right? So, so Hankinson said they knocked on the door and then they waited 30 seconds. So if you're asleep, you can't hear that knock. However, if you're in the bedroom listening to television, you're not going to hear the knock. Boom, 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 police. You're not really going to, hear it in your sleep. However, when they began to use the battering ram, that woke what I can see. Of course, this is me following just this part of it. So I haven't been following the news and all of that and whatever other developments have happened. And so if you know about that, then just let me know. I don't mind, being wrong when I'm not understanding in a certain aspect. But that battering ram, boom, 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 that's what woke Kenneth and Breonna up. and they got prepared and prepared themselves for a possible break-in. So if they didn't understand what was happening, I understand why Kenneth decided to defend himself. Now Hankinson was outside, right? The glass sliding doors, and saw a figure, and he said the figure had an AR-15. This was in his testimony. It was like, what? Which was never found. So he was like seeing things. And when you listen to the audio file from the fourth, when you listen to the fourth audio file, you hear the officers discussing like their eyesight, their vision fading in and out. Oh, it's very weird. Come to your own conclusion. That's why I played it. I was listening like, what's going on with these officers and their inability to see straight? Anyway, Hankinson himself is saying that when what he saw was a consistent fire coming out of the gun, as if though it was an automatic weapon. And so when we know that, and when they looked, they didn't find any automatic gun. They didn't find any long rifle, is what they called it. It was a 9mm, right? That Kenneth was holding. It was called, but so Hankinson, being on the outside of the door, Hankinson is like on the outside of a sliding door, the glass sliding door. He sees, he's the only officer with a clear line of sight of what's going on. And so Hankinson then fires that direction, right? Not having a clear line of sight, or not able to really get his target from that line of sight. He then walks around to the bedroom window and shot through the bedroom window towards the muzzle flashes, right? And that's when he stated that after he shot through the window, that the flashes stopped. Now, Hankinson, that was the only officer who had a view of the person firing the weapon. Breonna Taylor, being a female, I don't know Breonna Taylor. There was this whole slanderous campaign coming out against her, which is what they do. I shouldn't be surprised. We should know that it's going to happen. It's really sad that we are not planning for their slander campaign that's going to happen once they do something wrong, because that's the first thing they do. It's very well documented. We can basically lay out, we know their playbook. It's not like they hide it. They just continue to put things in play. So my guess is Breonna Taylor, while Kenneth is standing up doing what he does, Breonna is down. And so Hankinson was the only officer who had a weapon shooting through the bedroom. And more than likely, he was the one that shot Breonna Taylor. And because of the adrenaline of the situation, he's just boom, 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 flying, shooting everything but the thing that he's aiming at. So now Kenneth Taylor, Breonna Taylor, Kenneth, I don't know. No, yeah. Kenneth Taylor was in his bed trying to defend, himself from what he thought was a break-in. Now, so what the media is saying and what the situation is coming out to look like is it's saying like you're wrong. If there is a break-in in your home, you don't know what the deal is, and you try to defend yourself. That's what's being presented, and so that's really off. So we know that so far, listening to the recordings, right? I'm just giving you an update on the audio recordings from audio 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on day 1. Hankinson's testimony is in audio recording 1 of day 2. So I did listen to that this morning, uploaded that. That was really interesting. If you're going to listen to the audio recordings to get an understanding yourself, I would advise skipping over 1 and literally like the first 30 minutes of 2, because 1, they're giving an explanation of Exhibit A, Exhibit B, Exhibit C. That's pretty much all they're doing in audio recording 1. Audio recording 2, they're discussing. What are they discussing? I don't even know what they're discussing. The first, because there's a lot of blank noise for a large period of time, and then they get into the body camera of Officer Owens, And then they get into the body camera of the SWAT members. So if you go into audio 2, that's what you're going to listen. Audio 3, that's going to be the witnesses, are the people that called in. You're going to listen to the 911 calls. So anyway, Hankinson more than likely shot Breonna Taylor. Daniel Cameron. So what we have in Daniel Cameron working with the law enforcement system, they couldn't get around that fact. They couldn't get around the fact that it was his bullets that were responsible for the death of Breonna Taylor. And then the wanton endangerment of the life of the other residents. And so the other officers were firing into the apartment building. Hankinson was the only, and then on the other side of the apartments, there's nothing here. There's not like, they're firing through walls, and so there's not another resident on that side. But Hankinson is firing this way, so there's other residents down there. But he's clearly the one, it's his firing. I mean, this is I can't prove it. I'm not there, but just listening to the testimony. And listening to even how he says it, because Hankinson himself says, when I shot in that direction, the muzzle fire stopped. So even he says it. Now the officers are trying to say that they announced themselves, but when you kind of listen to the jury and the recordings, I don't know if you can really come to that conclusion. So the officers, they execute the warrant, or they begin to do the warrant at 12:40. Now, I don't know exactly what that means. Does that mean that they got out their car at 12:40 in order to execute the warrant, or did they knock on the door at 12:40? That's like really important in reference to like the timing of how things occurred, right? So if it means that they were approaching the residence at 12:40, then that's a really, really bad claim for them saying that they announced themselves, because the first call to 911 came in at 12:43, which means the person began calling sometime at 12:42. And in order to have called at 12:42, after hearing the gunshots, the shots would have had to been fired between 12:41 and 12:42. You understand? You follow what I'm saying? So the officers said they knocked and then waited 30 to 45 seconds before they began banging on the door with the battering ram. So, and then they said they were able to bang on the door 4 times before shots began to be fired. So they weren't repeatedly knocking. Some of them are saying they were knocking. No, they knocked once, they waited, and then they came in. Now, Kenneth Walker was sleeping with Breonna Taylor, and the conversation is that her boyfriend or one of her boyfriends were violent and could possibly take him out. Got up in defense and was ready to defend himself. So he began firing and hit the officers in the hallway before they breached the door, or something of that nature. And so, like I said, the only officer that had a chance, to really, do something effective was Hankinson, because the rest of them were firing blindly, literally firing blindly. And that's why it was like listening to, I forget the officer's name, but they were like, my vision was going in and out. It was like things were going far away and then it would come back. And Hankinson talking about he saw the muzzle fire as if there was an AR-15. I mean, none of that makes any sense. Like, what's going on? Is the adrenaline too much for you? Like, you really can't execute your job without having delusions? Are you delusional, right? So it's a lot. It's very interesting. And it's very educational for me to see how, detailed the law is. Just listening, it's very cold. It's very, just interesting to see. I've never been in a court before and saw how that goes down. So it's very, it's very instructive. So that's my take on it so far. Later on today, I'm going to upload the rest of day 2. It seems like day 3 was really, I don't know what happened on day 3, but there's not a lot of recordings for day 3. So That's what I take on it. And I can't comment on what it's like to be an officer. I'm not gonna say, defund or f the police and all of that. Um, I don't know. I've never been in that position. I know that there's a problem. I know that as a person of African descent in America, I instinctively know I am not safe as I travel. I am safe in the divine essence of all that is, was, and ever shall be. But I know that my physical person in traveling through the United States needs to be wary and careful of people of European descent by and large, because there tends to be this behavior of anger, this behavior of violence, this behavior of hatred, this behavior of fear towards the other. And I really wish there wasn't that, atmosphere out there, but it is, and that's kind of, what I was commenting a little bit on Lovecraft Country. If you look, the history of African Americans is we've had to be very careful when we travel to the United States, because there is such a thing as sundown towns, and that meant that you had better not let the sun go down on you while you're in this town. Otherwise, you could find yourself being strange fruit, so to speak. And it's really sad, because all people really want to do is exist in a peaceful environment. Now, you have elements in all communities that are less than civil, and that need to have or need to learn lessons and grow up and be a better person. You have those elements in all societies. You have it in Asian, you have it in Hawaiian, you have it in Black, you have it in white, you have it in Native American. You know what I'm saying? And that's the purpose of civilization, is to civilize the brothers and sisters out of those lower aspects of being. But just because of that, that doesn't mean that you should have the right to eliminate life or take the physical life. You understand what I'm saying? And so, I just watched another video today. Shatanika, I gotta get the name right. But she was hogtied in the back of a police cruiser and fell on her neck in the floor and dang near died. Whatever she was doing, however she was acting, she was treated as less than human. And that's how these people are acting. Now, you have people out here that are being racially motivated, to act out on race. You have the brother Grandmaster Jay, speaking towards the pain and the suffering of African Americans and galvanizing them in a racial understanding and a racial polarity understanding to go out and to start a war, so to speak. And I don't trust Jay, but then at the same time, you got these other wild people, the Proud Boys, and you got the Angry Vikings, all these people ready to enact violence. On one hand, you got this in fact brother doing his thing. I kind of think he's an agent, comedic if anything, but the concept is right. The concept of being able to defend your community is correct. But he's not an issue. They're not violent. They're not going out there and actually hurting people. They're not, at the very least, I can say that, they're not glorifying even this last incident that happened in Louisville, where the young brother took it upon himself to go after the officers. They're not glorifying that. Whereas when I looked up the Proud Boys, because I didn't know who they were, and I looked them up, and then I looked at their connections with other white supremacist groups, I was like, this was just sad to see that we have this type of racial tension and hatred in the country. And maybe that's just me and my naivete, you know what I'm saying? Because I go to the mountains, I meditate, I connect with the divine essence, and I understand all are one, on a fundamental level. We are all part of the divine essence. That is an understanding of mine. And so I know that everybody acts out of the lower egoic self, and more than likely they act out of ignorance. I know and understand that. However, in order to accomplish peace, we need to come to an understanding. These racial extremes will not bring peace, and it is something that is global. It's something that has to be dealt with. It's tribal consciousness is real. You understand what I'm saying? I witness this all around the globe when I travel around the world, and I see people gathering together and being galvanized based upon tribal consciousness. So we do have to acknowledge that that's real, but it is not a truth. The truth. It is a truth that, we belong, or we have similarities amongst the races. But the truth is we are all brothers and sisters of the divine essence. And we need to learn how to operate as a family. That is the truth. Anything less is simply that. It's less. And it is a lesser understanding. So that is my conversation. That is my take on the Breonna Taylor incident. Give me a moment and I'll bring up, the Hankerson part and let you see how I came to that conclusion. Hold on one second. I'm gonna go ahead and play this Hankerson piece for you so you can see how I came to the conclusion of what actually happened. I think it was this one.
We're trying to refocus the investigation that we're presenting. There's other issues related to the warrant that we're not getting too much in here.
No, that's not it.
But the officers were executing a valid search.
Yeah, that's right.
And you just provided. Correct. They triaged him here. I think there was some cars parked here in the spots. They triaged him somewhere out here, and I think once the beat right, I think they moved him that way. And I never paid much. I just didn't know that I didn't care.
All right, hold on a second. All right, so nope, I was wrong. So let me go ahead and share my screen with you so I can show you what the deal is. All right, so this is Breonna Taylor's house right here. So let me see if I can help you out, understand it right here, right? So Hankerson, this is how Hankerson was coming into the area, right? So Hankerson, when it was all going down, this is where Hankerson was standing, right here, right? Hankerson said that he saw the muzzle fire happening right here, right? And he then proceeded to to aim and fire in that direction, but he felt like he wasn't able to really get it and able to really stop the person firing the gun from there. So then Hankerson walks back here to this window. Hankerson then walks to this window and fires into the bedroom, but he's firing wildly. He does everything but hit his target. So all of those years of police training, all of that target practice amounts to jack, right? I'm glad Kenneth is still alive per se, but I'm sad that Breonna lost her life due to negligence or whatever it was, whatever the case may be. But so he fired through the window, and Hankerson, from his own testimony, says after he was done firing, that's when the firing stopped. We don't know what happened at this point. Now, Breonna's boyfriend, right, Kenneth, he calls in. So they start doing the warrant at 12:40. All of this firing is taking place, right? These people around here are calling. The first call happens at 12:43. So remember what I said earlier. They say they execute the warrant at 12:40. So does that mean they start knocking on the door or whatever? But if the first call didn't happen at 12:43, the person, the person heard the gunshots at 12:42. Essentially, they more than likely, and then Hankerson said they knocked and then waited 30 to 45 seconds before they started banging, and then they banged 4 times before the door came off the hinges, and then Kenneth is saying he didn't start firing until the door came off the hinge. We're just looking at time here. And according to the time, it doesn't really sound like they announced themselves. Nobody who called knew what was going on. Kenneth, when he called, he said, somebody's breaking into my house. I don't know what happened. They shot Breonna, So Kenneth is being confused. Everybody else around is saying, we don't know what's going on. There's a lot of shooting. So nobody knows the cop is there. Nobody knows that the cops are there, right? It really doesn't sound like they executed, like they knocked. It doesn't sound like they announced themselves according to the testimonies. You know what I'm saying? So that's the takeaway that we're getting from this. And then Hankinson is acting like an assassin. With this, I mean, he's doing his job, whatever. But he definitely seems to be more than likely the one doing this. But his shots are going through to the next apartment. The other, I don't know. I've never been in a gunshot, situation in recent memory. The last 20, 25 years, give or take, maybe even 30. But so I'm not familiar with the bullets could travel, how far, how many walls the bullets could travel through. But Hankinson's bullets definitely traveled through this glass, through one wall, and through another glass out the back. That's for sure. But that's what he's being charged with. More than likely, it was his gun that's the perpetrator. I'm not the grand jury, so I can't say, but this seems to be what Daniel Cameron was trying to hide. This was what he was trying to hide. This is why the juror came out and said, you didn't even give us a chance to really discuss if this was the real, if this is the real issue. That's my perception on it. Being an armchair quarterback in this situation and not being on the ground looking at it. Breonna Taylor definitely deserves justice, but not she deserves justice, but as a community, we deserve justice. And as a nation and as a people, we deserve better. We deserve to know that we will all be treated equal, period, under the eyes of the law and in the eyes of each other. We are all brothers and sisters of the divine essence. And so this behavior is really just unacceptable. And this is, besides the Soros situation behind the Black Lives Matter movement, and then this crazy, perhaps Russian CIA backed, hopefully organic impact movement, that's happening in Lafayette, Louisiana today. Hope, we could avoid all of this and really come together as a nation, as a people, and work these things out. You understand? People of African descent, should not fear where we live. It's ridiculous that we have to go out, into society, and we have to have the double consciousness of knowing that, officers are really not there to protect us. Every time you get into a conflict, every time you get into a discussion with an officer, there is the serious and real potential that you will not go home tonight and that you will be talking to your ancestors one-on-one. That is the understanding I have each and every time I interact with the officer. I don't care if I'm walking into the 7-Eleven store and he's getting coffee. That is my understanding. And so, and that should be it. There's no I see the brothers and sisters getting all belligerent. That's that Aries, that martial energy that people have. They really need to control that. Your goal when you run into when you interact with the police, it should be to go home. Nothing is worth, no amount of, verbal exchange is worth not being able to see your mom at the end of the day. You understand what I'm saying? So at the same time, we want to see our mom at the end of the day. So officers, stop acting like we're less than human. Clean that from your consciousness. You understand what I'm saying? This has to be done if we're going to move forward together on this planet. Because if we don't cleanse these inimical, false, egoic energies, it's not going to last. We're just not going to last. You have to get over this consciousness that you have that all people of African descent are criminals. We are not. We have to be able to trust the law enforcement that we have in the community, defunding the police might be the thing, but we need to have enforcement. You don't have any communities without enforcement. So we need some sort of way of protecting the people. Even the ancient Egyptians had the Magi, who were the police, basically. And so there's no real way you can have a social organization without some sort of organization to also protect the people. But you cannot protect the people if you think the people are inherently criminal. That's not going to work. And so I think that's a good enough soapbox for today. Thank you for tuning in. For those of you that are watching, I will be back and I'll upload the other videos later on. Watch and form your opinion and your judgments on them. Until that time, peace.